plates, cutlery, pizza boxes, dirty tissues, anything you leave on this coffee table just vanishes overnight. I mean, sometimes I'll see how far I can push this thing and I'll just leave shit everywhere. And then sure enough, the next day, it's all gone. It's just vanished. No, she wouldn't have left me. This is what I think happened. I heard her get up in the middle of the night to get a drink or something. She must have fallen onto the magic coffee table and just vanished.
I've got the same coffee table at home.
Somebody I thought was my savior sure made me do a whole lot of labor.
So I think Paris Paloma summed it up best in her 2024 song Labor, where she sings, "All day, everyday therapist, mother, maid, nymph, then a virgin, nurse, then a servant, just an appendage, live to attend him, so that he never lifts a finger. 24/7 baby machine, so he can live out his picket fence dreams. It's not an act of love if you make her. You make me do too much labor." In the song, she breaks down this idea of domestic bliss, where stereotypically women take care of the home and children while the father goes out into the world and supports them financially. And on the face of it, you might think this is a fair trade-off. They are both doing their parts, so to speak. The man is working hard outside the home to support a wife and children, something he doesn't necessarily need to do. He's seemingly doing it out of the goodness of his heart to support these dependents, while he could just be a bachelor and not have to work so hard. While the woman seemingly gets the better end of the stick, staying home, not working, getting to live somewhere for free, and just doing what she would have to do otherwise, cleaning up, maintaining a house, cooking, but just for a few more people. Therefore, everything is equal. The man financially supports the family, and the woman does her job of taking care of the house, which isn't really even a job, right? It's not really work, is it, if it's your own home? We pay domestic laborers like housekeepers and cleaners, babysitters, and daycare workers because it's not their house, it's not their kids, but you're a wife and mom. That's your house, those are your kids, your living space. Why should you get rewarded or helped with something that you should be doing anyway? So it's really like the woman gets all of the benefits of this labor trade-off. Paris Paloma should just get off her high horse then, right? But here's the thing, it's not that simple. Not only do many women leave the workforce to take care of the children and then wholly become dependent on a man who is not only their husband, but their bank, their boss, and depend on his mood and welfare to survive, God forbid he dies, becomes sick, or is abusive, but also your wife is not your maid. You are two adults in a partnership. It's not just about who does more around the house, how chores are divided. Oh, he's too tired to do XYZ, he works all day. Moms work all day too, whether it be cooking and cleaning or taking care of babies. It's about how they work to make sure their husbands come home to an orderly house, but who does that for them? Again, it's not just about who does more, or what, or when. It's about how women in these types of domestic labor divides cannot come home to a clean house, cannot come home to home-cooked meals and clean floors, etc. But men can, and even worse, expect to. They can lounge around the house and zone out, put their dish in the sink, and it magically gets clean. And it's not magic. It's your wife making sure dishes don't pile up for her, that laundry is folded and put away, that groceries are stocked, that kids are doing their homework. It's a job that never ends because their house becomes their workplace, rather than a place to sit down and relax. And honestly, that is the crux of the domestic labor dispute, or gender war, if you will. It's about how women in an equal marriage also need to have a house that's theirs, where they shouldn't have to work so hard to maintain a shared living space. And I know there's some men out there whose logic is, I shouldn't have to do chores because I make sure you have a house to do chores in the first place. And all I can say to that is that's a really abusive mindset. And if you know someone in that type of relationship, it's a red flag. Women depend so much on the kindness of their husbands, their charity. It's this patriarchal mentality in society we built for women who are financially dependent on their husbands that they think they're lucky to even have a place to sleep at night. But it's not charity, it's a relationship. You as a man chose to do this, chose to take on dependence. No one forced you to get married and have kids, though plenty of men will say they were tricked or coerced and now their wife is a nagging bitch, but maybe she wouldn't nag you so much if you recognized her worth or your part in this. What I really love about Paloma's song is the line, "So you can live out your picket fence dreams," which highlights how women have value to men as status symbols in society, not just as a free maid, therapist, mom, and nymph, to put it lightly. Because a 50-year-old bachelor or divorcee chasing after women half his age, though I guess to some men seems baller, is kind of pathetic. Family members might start asking questions. When are you going to settle down? Why are you with someone who just got out of college? So many men decide and actively choose to get into marriages with women they can barely tolerate for appearances, to just post on Instagram and show off that their life is perfect and in order. Marriages of convenience, but just for them, so they don't look like a creep or a loser. And that's its own toxic masculinity thing that we'll get into at another date. But they get into these marriages to show off that they have their life together and to prove to the world that they were able to achieve this dream of domestic bliss without actually understanding how to see their partner as a fully formed human being. They instead view her, as Paloma put it, an appendage that is there to attend him. Some nicer men out there, read weaponized incompetent men, might be like, well, I want to help, I just don't know what she wants me to do. She doesn't communicate. A, she shouldn't have to ask. B, if you see a mess, you clean the mess. It's that simple. You see dirty dishes or a full can of trash, deal with it. There's a viral meme of men talking about how if they put a dish in the sink, it randomly gets washed and put away. And the punchline is that the men in this video, all of the men, have these strange happenings in their house too, as if a ghost lives with them. The joke is that these men are oblivious to the invisible laborers in their own house, the women they supposedly love and care for. The joke is at the expense of the men, but I think it highlights a serious problem when it comes to household labor, which is that the work women do is so underappreciated that the men, who again supposedly love them, don't even realize it's happening or what's happening in their own homes. There's a joke about how men can't find shit in their own house because they've never even thought about putting anything away. That's not even to bring up the undertones of domestic bliss, which is that to get free housing and food provided by her husband, women feel coerced into sex. Paloma sings, "It's not an act of love if you make her, you make me do too much labor." Coercive marital sex is a real thing, and marital rape laws in the US are fairly new. It wasn't until 1974 when states started to outlaw it. That's how expected sex was from wives, as payment or a reward for their husband's supposed kindness. It really makes you sick. Of course, not all marriages are awful, but there needs to be laws in place to recognize the patriarchal imbalance of marriage and laws that can hold abusive husbands accountable. There are these anti-suffragette propaganda images from the turn of the century that essentially are men telling on themselves. They basically show how hard household chores are, and their wives as suffragettes are torturing them by making them take care of the children and their shared meals and shared household, even though it was the man's choice to get married, showing how some men choose to get married to have a maid, therapist, virgin nymph, etc. So the men can acknowledge how hard the women work at home and that they don't even want to do it themselves, but at the same time, instead of empathizing, they villainize their wives for hurting their husbands. More recently, it's been noted how men are applauded for helping out with kids in the house, while for women, it's expected. So the woman's expectations haven't changed, but the way we view men doing household chores has. They no longer are depicted as hating women's work, but rather are lauded, and people are taken aback and surprised pleasantly that a man stepped up at all, even though it's his kids and his family and his house. Men aren't helping out, they're just doing their part. One thing I noticed during my rewatch of The Office is how maternity leave is treated and how Jim and Pam are treated during parenthood. For example, both Pam and Meredith talk about how awesome maternity leave was. I assume they only got 6 weeks, and Meredith says she used it as a vacation. And for Meredith, I guess the joke is that she's a negligent parent, but for Pam, I didn't get it at all. She couldn't even start her maternity leave until she was about to burst. Newborns don't sleep regularly, they are just learning how to feed. It's a very stressful time, and maternity leave isn't long enough either. So it just feels so ingenuine to me to be like, maternity leave was awesome. It was essentially just a vacation where I got to stay home and do nothing but snuggle with a baby.
What was maternity leave like? Oh, how do I explain it? It rocked. It rocked my ass off.
And sure, snuggling with a baby does happen during the newborn phase, but generally motherhood takes a lot out of you, and they never really portray that until the later episodes. But it just baffles me how a show could basically endorse this idea that maternity leave is similar to a vacation, because it not only downplays what moms go through, ironic considering The Office is supposed to be a more real sitcom as a documentary about real people, but also this endorses this idea that women get pregnant or use maternity leave as a way to slack at work and get free vacation days, essentially villainizing something that women continue to fight for to this day. Even worse, when Jim has jury duty and lies that it went longer than it did to stay home with Pam, all of his coworkers immediately resent him for staying home to help with his postpartum wife, thinking that he used this time to slack off. It's not until Jim and Pam bring their kids in that their coworkers see how Jim didn't have a vacation at home, but rather was working, doing domestic labor. So Jim's small paternity leave that was a few days wasn't a vacation, but Pam and Meredith's was. I know the cast of The Office characters are supposed to be unlikable, but that was just too much for me. Staying home as a parent of 2 young kids is not a sit back and relax time. It's emotional regulation, it's making sure everyone eats and is bathed, it's making sure to stay engaged as a parent, and a lot of patience. For anyone who thinks staying home with a toddler or newborn is just hanging out and watching TV, don't have kids. Sometimes when my mind goes to really dark places, I think about how some men and women, particularly white men and women, in white supremacist circles, love to romanticize the 50s and even earlier moments in time where domestic servants and enslaved people, particularly black enslaved people in the US, had to do the domestic labor of taking care of white children and white households, and how they romanticize these points in time because they could outsource their labor to domestic servants and enslaved people, and therefore that was a time when domestic bliss for a select few white people was achievable. By exploiting an underclass, white domestic bliss could thrive because they didn't have to pay anyone or see laborers as people. Though I should note that doesn't save white women. But as white nationalism is a death cult, I honestly think many of them would die in trying to re-enslave a minority population than see how the patriarchy affects them. I also think that's why the idea of robot servants is so popular to the billionaire class, and why there's this push for AI and robotics. Even historically, domestic appliances, new technology at the time like dishwashers and washing machines and blenders, were there to help women in the house and lighten their load, but at times in a very condescending way. I also sometimes wonder about the rise in domestic appliance technology and the rise in integration and the end of segregation racially, as it gave more opportunities to Black Americans to not have to be in domestic roles or domestic labor roles. I don't know, I think about that sometimes. Today, these white conservative rich assholes just want to be able to enslave another group of beings that they don't have to pay or see as real. They might even replace women altogether to then achieve this white supremacist fantasy that never truly existed. Not just because their privilege was due to the suffering of millions of enslaved people and that white women didn't have equal rights either, but artists of the 50s and early 60s in particular, a period of time loved by white supremacists, was a very self-aware time, and the artists then were aware of how they were being portrayed and how unhappy life actually was, and made art for future generations to not oversimplify their era. From the novel Revolutionary Road and Catcher in the Rye to The Twilight Zone, all was not well in the 50s and early 60s. And I should note that at this moment, modern-day slavery and torture of human beings is already taking place, and at the hands of the billionaire ruling class, whether it be in Gaza, where Kushner and his goons hope to completely demolish the land and people and then take it for themselves, or the Congo and Sudan, where the UAE and Saudi Arabia are funding a genocide for natural resources. It's already here. These billionaires are designing a future for them and themselves alone. Modern-day slavery is a very real thing and predominantly affects those in historically exploited nations in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central and South America, but it also exists in the US. A supposedly first world country, I've been told. Labor exploitation goes far and wide, from the national level to the international level to your own home. No one is safe, and that's why we need to look out for one another and recognize the signs starting at home, no matter how small. So if you're a guy watching this, you might be wondering, well, how can I help? And there's this one creator I want to shout out named JGP Unfiltered. His videos delve into why it's so important for men to help out at home, which is for wives to come home and not to have to immediately start cleaning up. He promotes this idea that the household chores are his chores too. No matter if he works or she works outside of the home, they both live there. They both can see the mess, and they both want to help out and take a little load off the other. He says marriage is 60-40 and you're both trying to be 60. He wants his wife to be able to get out of the house and then come home and not stress out about the dishes in the sink or toys on the floor or if the toddler ate. And in the end, he's answering the crux of the domestic labor argument, which is that a woman's home is just that, her home, where she should be able to unwind and where her house doesn't become her workplace.
We have a newborn and 2-year-old. We're kicking my wife out to go get a surprise massage she didn't know about. Let's see how this goes.
Sabrina Carpenter in Manchild sings, "I choose to blame your mom for how incompetent men are today," and I think she highlights something interesting, which is men being babied by their mothers while sisters are put into default caretaker, housekeeper roles as children, highlighting how men need to talk to men, but also how women, mothers in particular, can realize their own patriarchal bias. Stereotypically, boys aren't supposed to clean up or look after younger siblings, they're not supposed to know how to cook, etc., but girls, specifically oldest daughters, are. Paloma writes, "If I had a daughter, I'd watch and could not save her the emotional torture from the head of your high table. Girls need to help their mom with the siblings, meals, cleaning, making sure the head of the table is happy because that's their assigned role, and that's not right." Jim in The Office even makes the age-old joke, "I'm only helping if it's a boy." Domestic labor doesn't have a gender. You see the mess, you clean the mess. Honestly, that part of the show took me out of it, and I just imagine Pam being like Allison from Kevin Can Fuck Himself. No one should have to beg their spouse to take out the trash once in a while just because they're paying your rent. And that's why some women are choosing choosing not to get married or delaying marriage because they don't need to put up with men not pulling their weight. And men might say, well, I don't need this, and many men do just get up and leave, but they also recognize the value women have as status symbols to other men and society at large, as a signifier that they made it, that they're providers, and that they're happy. And though being a single woman has its stigma and hardships, I think women are learning their value more and have less of a vested interest in putting up with half-baked relationships just for show. Whereas men, who are seemingly on the whole very insecure right now, don't have the choice to be picky, though they think they do. Paloma sings in her song about all the roles women play for men: therapist, mother, maid, nymph, virgin, nurse, servant, baby machine. But I can't say that men play the same role for women, and that scares the shit out of them. So men, step up. So that's it for this one. I hope you liked it. I know it got a bit dark at points, but this isn't a light conversation, even though it is just seemingly about household chores. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.